To have you continue to bow your heads, and we're going to ring the bell for all those who have gone before us in this area. For all those from the Oakley Knightsen Fire District that have gone before us. From the Bethel Island Fire District. From the Byron Fire District. From the Eastern Fire District. From the Brentwood Fire Department. The East Diablo Fire District. And the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District. Thank you. This is spectacular. I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, the faces that are in the crowd, as Chief Incumbent previously said, you know, this didn't just arrive overnight. This is something that we've been working on for at least a year. And the fact that I can see all of you standing in the crowd is nothing less than amazing. There are many, many faces in the crowd that I know. And there are many that I don't. But I will tell you, all of you collectively, I feel very privileged just to really be within your presence here today. I want to start off by thanking all of those that have ever served in the capacity as either a volunteer, a paid-on-call firefighter, or reserve for any of the agencies of which the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District now serves. So if you have served in any of those capacities, can you either stand or just raise your hand from where you are so we can acknowledge you? Please stand. Thank you. This is really for you. All of you that just stood and or raised your hand, that's what this is all about. You know, as I said, a couple of you out there, this is kind of like bringing the old band back together, you know, just bringing everyone together. And it's not even really about the formality of the process. It's really more about the people. It's really about you that are here today. And so as a fun fact, for all of those that have questioned how I got out here, Gil knows he's responsible for bringing me this way. So that's a fun fact. See, at that time, the Contra Costa County Firefighters Association, again being a charitable and fellowship type group, they traveled to 11 different agencies over 11 months. And they ran their meetings, they did fundraisers for charities, and they actually had a lot of fellowship. And it was very attractive to me. In June of 1997, maybe July, I found myself going to a town called Knightsen, Station 94. It was one of the stations of which we had to go to. And I traveled out here with my now bride and one of my friends, and we're like, where is this place at? How far? What's out here? Coming from Moraga. And I say that jokingly. But we finally arrived at Station 94, and as we pulled up, we had Chief Bob Pastor and many of the men that are of the Oakley Knightsen Fire District. They met me out on the street with open arms. They introduced themselves, they welcomed my bride and I, and my friend said, hey, come on inside. See, at that moment, I got exposed to something that I hadn't seen really much before, even within the fire service. But as we approached Station 94 and walked into the engine bay, it was full of tables, it was full of people. it was full of stories, and it was full of laughter, and there was a fridge full of sodas, and there was a feast made for a king. And there was tri-tip, and there was Brentwood corn, and there was all of the fixings. And the way that they brought us in that night, and what it is, and the way that they lived is something I hadn't seen before. See, that night, when I left, I didn't only get introduced to the Oakley Knightsen Fire Protection District, but I also got exposed to the position of a paid-on-call firefighter. Many may classify it as an argument. I think my wife and I more had a conversation all the way home about the opportunity, the camaraderie, to be able to be part of something in this organization and working out here. I knew that it would take relocation, it took take moving, and she told me there is no way that we're leaving Moraga and we're coming out here. So I listened, but the next day I went into the Moraga Firefighters and I told them about my experience. I was motivated, I was energized, and I was excited. And they said, hey, you know what, kid? You're going to have an opportunity to be a firefighter here, but maybe it's a good opportunity for you to go get some experience. They're busy out there. There's a lot of fire. There's a lot of medicals. There's a lot of vehicle accidents. There's a lot of opportunity for experience. Maybe you should go give it a shot. And I said, you know what? I'll do that. So after much motivation and much convincing to my bride, we moved. And I looked at those guys and I said, hey, you know what, guys? Give me 3 years. I'll be right back. Well, here we are 20 years later. I'm still here. Throughout my time with Oakley Knightsen Fire, it was a very special time for me. The time there stoked my passion, not only for service before self, being part of the community, and it wasn't passion only for the fire service, but it also started to fall really in love with the communities that all of us that are here today, which is now the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District serve, I actually fell in love with the communities. But throughout my time with Oakley Knightsen, there were many men. Many of you are in the audience right now, and others that are not, that invested in me. And you all know who you are. And I'll never forget what you did for me. I also don't forget where I came from. I will never forget my time served as a paid-on-call firefighter with Oakley Knightsen, and I'm very proud of the work that we did, and it is something that I will never forget. And it is for those reasons that this day is very important to me. And that's why also you, as individuals, the ones I know, the ones I don't, why you are important to me. I also, working the capacity I do now, I often get hit periodically about what did you do with our volunteers? And I understand the optics of that, but there are moments I sit there and I say, well, you know, I was one of those guys, you know? And there are some of us that are actually, we have some of us in the audience today that worked in those capacities. And so even though, yes, there is a lot that has changed, there are many members today that serve in this organization that once had the privilege to serve in those capacities. Myself, Captain Ruddick, and many other members throughout our organization. So look, let me be clear and let me understand is that I know, and I would never defend or say it otherwise, that there were rocky years, there were rocky points, and there were rocky times. Individually, the optics, what people may see, that stuff occurred. And it's part of our story, it's part of our reality. But with that being said, is that starting today, and as East Contra Costa Fire Protection District moves forward, we will memorialize and we will honor annually those that have come before us. And I want to give you some examples to how we're going to demonstrate that through our behaviors. And today is an example of that. But another example that I want to give to you is that starting in 2017, the district started to define a process to establish badge numbers for our active members that are working in the district in 2002 to date. In going through that process, we identified that the district today has 93 members that have served in the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District from 2002 to present date, that have been hired by the district on full-time status and got all probationary status and been defined as permanent employees with the district. Now, this process was a long-winded one. We had many conversations, and again, it started in 2018. And as we went through that process, again, we identified that those that met the criteria, there was 93 members that have been on probation, been in the district. And I'm privileged and honored to say that I carry badge number 47. What's cool about this process was that at the end of our conversations and establishing the criteria and identifying who fell within the criteria, it became readily apparent that the district was actually building the numbers upon the shoulders of the men that had gone before us. And it happened just by chance, by criteria. The hat badge numbers actually just arrived in district just the other day. We have not passed any of them out to any of our members yet. But today I'll be issuing the first one. There's many boards in the back of the room which we'll be discussing, and we'll have other folks talking about it, but one of them identifies the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District members and the badge numbers. We're just standing right here to my left side. Thank you. And you can see that we have many folks that are on there. But if you take some time to look at that badge, you'll identify that the number one badge number is Maggie Fajardo. 9301, Assistant Chief of the Oakley Knightsen Fire Protection District, transitioned to the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District into our full-time logistics officer and served, otherwise known as 5180. So although we went through that process, I think it's very symbolic that the agency, as we've gone through all the organizations, as you can see to your left, my right, and on our current badge numbers, is that it begins where the story finished. And we continue to carry on today. So with that, I would like to invite up Maggie's family, as I would like to issue East Contra Costa Fire Protection District's badge number 1. That is assigned to Maggie Fajardo.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really honored that so many of you have shown up. My name is Robert Ruddick, and I am a son of a volunteer firefighter. For those of you who may not know him, Bob Ruddick, over there. Bob Ruddick is my dad. He was a volunteer firefighter with Knightsen from 1979 until 2002. I was lucky enough to grow up around the fire station and took part in many family activities, such as barbecues, going to the Manteca water slides, handing out candy at Halloween, and our annual Christmas party. Growing up in the Ruddick household, I became accustomed to the sound of a scanner, and I would hear different dispatches, different calls going down, hear the police, hear the fire, and I would hear Delta Regional Communication Center dispatch engine 94W, power wagon 94, and 9401 for a grass fire. And as a kid, I would do make-believe, imagine that I was a firefighter. And I would pretend to be a firefighter, and I would have my radio flyer. I had a red wagon, and I would drag it around the house, dispatching. And my red wagon was actually called Power Wagon 94. I didn't know exactly what it was. I just knew it was Power Wagon. So I looked up to the volunteers and I wanted to be like them. And I admire them still to this day. I learned from them what it means to serve others and how to build community. This admiration has driven me to want to honor them, as well as all the volunteers from all the other surrounding departments for what they did. My part in this project began 2 years ago as part of I was going to St. Mary's College and getting a degree, and one of the parts of my project involved gathering history to see if we could get some photos. We were doing an annual recognition ceremony for our own employees, and I wanted to show everyone else within our district that we had deeper roots than just 2002. Accumulation of this has evolved me sitting down and interviewing over 40 people at their homes sometimes. Sometimes those conversations went over 3 hours. Out of that, I gathered 896 names from all of the previous fire districts. And I think I'm just scratching the surface because there's still probably quite a few out there.
I'm here to try and explain why the monument and how it got to be here in Knightsen. I want to try and explain the monument, and the first, I'm trying to read this because I'm slow. So, first of all, this is a very positive event between the volunteer firefighters and a lot of help from the district and the full-time firefighters. It was possible to put this event on. However, this has not always been the case. We have had some tough times getting to this event. It started out with the Oakley Fire District. There were 2 stations, the Oakley Station and the Knightsen Station. This went on for many years. Then in the 90s, we were merged with the Contra Costa County Fire District. We were 2 volunteer first-out engine companies among 20 full-time stations. We decided we needed representation. So with the help of Paul Catino, he's standing right back there. Stand up, Paul. Oh, no, he's standing up. Raise your hand. Or I should say that he pretty much single-handedly made this happen. We then started the East County Firefighters Association Union. We had an MOU and a bargaining unit rights with the county and the district. I think we might have been the only volunteer firefighter union in the country. After about 4 years, we then bargained our way out of the Contra Costa County Fire District and became the Oakley Knightsen Fire District. A while after that, we were merged with the East Contra Costa County Fire District. We still had a few problems, so the East County Firefighters Association enlisted the help of an attorney. I won't go through everything that happened because that would make a very long story. And Paul could probably write a book on getting to the process. But one of the concessions that the district made was to fund this monument on behalf of all the fire stations that became the East County Contra Costa Fire District. The Knightsen station was the last volunteer station in the district. So the last people in the East County Firefighters Association Union were from Knightsen. We decided to put the monument in the Knightsen Park, thinking it would always stay there. There was room on the monument, so the Knightsen Firefighters Association, which were the part of the last station in the district, and never disbanded, and they still meet once a month. In fact, Thursday we just had our monthly meeting. Had a very good dinner, by the way, we had. They asked if they could pay to have their logo and the names of the firefighters on the monument. It was agreed upon because we thought the monument would be staying in Knightsen. Now it looks like the district might have a new administration building, training ground, and shop in the works. It also looks like a museum might also be in the works. This means that a lot of our memorabilia from the stations could be preserved, and also the fire engines that are still in the area could be housed there. It looks like now that the monument could be moved so that more people could see it. We are now on a very positive road of the volunteer firefighters not being forgotten for all the years of their dedicated service. We can certainly thank the fire district for not letting us all be forgotten. This is a great start for good things to come for the past volunteers.
Our chief and many of our BCs came from the volunteer beginning and roots. I'm a grandson of a captain, a son-in-law of an engineer, and the father of a firefighter, Jacob Barr Everhart. I never intended to be a firefighter, and that abruptly changed. One day, commuting Vasco Road, I was first on scene to a horrific head-on collision. An 18-year-old Sacramento girl was hopelessly entombed, crushed in her car. All I could do was console her and hold her hand until she died. I vowed never again would I be in a situation where I couldn't save a life that could be saved. I took a CPR class, and firefighter engineer Dave Stoffler then recruited me to be a Knightsen fireman at the Bob Pastor Station 94, one of the last volunteer stations in the district. Our training was excellent, and our equipment and apparatus the best in the county. Our response times were excellent. They were hired pretty much by how close you lived to the fire station. I could make it down there in probably about 2 minutes, blowing the stop signs and stuff. But I still didn't get on the engine a lot of times because many people live closer to the station. So volunteer fire was more than a fraternity. It was more than a brotherhood. It was a family of all of you. Tovars, Shermans, Tiptons, Barumans, Alesnas, Gaminos, Navarres, Angelos, Sites, all of them. I could just sit here and name 100 names off the top of my head. So this includes all of you. And many of you are second generation firefighters, the Johnstons, Catinos, Pastors, Navarros, Ruddicks, the Olmsteads, the Gilarazas, is that how you pronounce that? Gileazis, thank you, Robert. The Shaddings, and even 3 generations of firefighters, the Summerhalters, the Boldakis, 3 generations of firefighters. It's just astounding. And thank you, all the firefighters' families that supported all of us and them for so many years. I love that sound. I would drive by my house and blow it off at any time of the day or night when I was driving by my house. It was great fun. My wife didn't appreciate it, though. But when the sirens blew and the pagers squawked, the volunteer firefighters would leave their homes, their farms, their jobs, forsaking their holidays, parties, and events, and rush to the fire station to bore the engines, to quench the fires, regain the heartbeats, and restart the breathing, stem the blood, and restore order from chaos. While most would run away or turn their heads, the firemen would save all that could be saved or salvage all that could be salvaged as if it was their own home or loved ones. They would cherish their victories, and their defeats would forever haunt them. Many carry physical wounds, hidden sicknesses, and cancers, and worse yet, the mental scars of all those that they could not save. All could possibly have faded into dust, forgotten. We owe them our gratitude. They did this not to glorify themselves, but to honor the spirit of all the firemen in the district. My deepest gratitude, guys. It has been my greatest honor and my greatest privilege to serve my community and my fire district. Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for being there, and everybody has been thanked 100 times. I want to give just a little bit about history, how Knightsen got started. We're part of the Oakley Fire Protection District. Back in 52, they decided there was quite a few calls out here in Knightsen, and they had an extra engine. They got a new engine in Oakley. So the board, which was run by Carl Gott and the Del Porto brothers, decided we'll bring an engine out here. So we were figuring out where we're going to put this thing. So like the story of the three little pigs, instead of building a straw house, we built a brick house right next to the, across the grocery store in Knightsen here. Now, for all of those that can't see it, I guess you won't see it. This is how we started out with. Saved by the train. Anyhow, this is what our station looked like when we got started. And brought an engine over from Oakley. Their second engine, a 1941 Chevy, 250-gallon pumper. And as you can see, it's still out here. It started off with the kind of slow with the fire department. We're going to say, man, we got to get volunteers. Oh boy. And it worked out pretty good. We had quite a few volunteers. It was mostly farmers, and we had a couple mill workers. And it started off with two brothers. When it first started, that was Art Summerhalder and Sam Summerhalder, and one was Gilbert's dad, and one's Phil's dad. In fact, we all became firemen. And then the other one was Pete and Ange Gigliossi, that lived right across the road. Another one was Jerry Croco, which he became assistant chief. And one of the things I'm kind of proud of Knightsen is that we had the first EMTs in the volunteer fire departments in Contra Costa County, so that was kind of a good tribute to us. Well, it made us feel good. The station here, we were toned off, like it was said, with a siren and bar display that. It was a siren set up on the in front of the top of the store, which now is still on top of station 94. And that siren, believe it or not, was from World War II, when the Japanese were going to invade America and all that. And we'd had these drills, alerts, and so forth. And so that siren became our alert siren. We started off with a siren. Like I said, no radios. We didn't have no pagers. We didn't have no plectrons. And as things progressed, we ended up with, first of all, was with pagers, big pagers. They were as big as, they were about. We've got a guy sitting in the audience right there in the front row, by the name of Tony Baruman. Tony Baruman, it was the first volunteer firefighter that came in here in Knightsen. So I'd like to give him a big hand. And not only Tony was a volunteer firefighter, Tony did a lot for the community. He ran little leagues and this and that with about 55 to 60 kids, and every one of those kids turned out great. None of them got in big missions and so forth. So at this time, I would like to present Tony Baruman, a longtime resident of Knightsen, for his great work and his contribution to the town of Knightsen and also to the community of Knightsen. So it's a great pleasure to present this plaque to you, Tony Baruman. Thank you.
My volunteer years were some of the greatest years of my life. I remember the first call I went on was a structure fire. And I had 5 captains on the rig with me. And the 2 captains on either side of me on the back of the running board looked at me and said, guess who's going to be doing all the work? I'd like to thank Joe Tovar, Daniel Tovar, Maggie, Mark Ayers, Earl Sherman, and Ted Tipton, and and everybody else. I grew up around the fire department. As a lot of you know, Joe Tovar is my uncle. I remember a lot of get-togethers, siren go off, and guys would be running in every direction. And the siren. When I was little, I ran from the siren, ran home, because it scared me to death. And then years later, I'm running to the station. Like I said, greatest time of my life. I love all you guys, and good to see everybody. Thank you.
I was probably a volunteer for about 15 years, and then Brentwood, at Tom Torlickson's idea, they decided they would merge Brentwood and Eastern, and the Eastern chief would become the chief of this new fire district. So that was in the process of happening, and the chief, Ray Morgan, passed away with a heart attack about a month before that was complete. So then a person who was a volunteer for us ended up becoming the chief. That went along for a few years, and then Torlickson and this new chief decided that they would start looking at putting the entire East County together. So next we were put together with, I don't have any notes, but I think it was Byron and Discovery Bay first. And then they decided it would be Oakley, Knightsen, Bethel Island. And next thing I knew, we were all together, and somewhere in there I decided to do it full time. I had already passed a job offer from Pittsburgh once, and then I decided, I really liked doing what I was doing, so I became one of the first employees with this first not East Contra Costa, East Diablo at that point. It's had a few names. So I worked for Brentwood, East Diablo, and East Contra Costa, and I've pretty much worked in each of the stations within the East County.
The original Byron Fire Department was founded in 1876. It was there because of the land that was burning. They had no equipment, but they'd call them if they needed it, and they used buckets and a makeshift wagon to make it do. That carried on until 1902. Then it was the business district downtown was wiped out by a main fire. Excuse me. And then another main fire came, and so they decided that it was time to formalize the volunteer fire department. That was in 1929. For myself, I started the fire department in 1969, 68, and stayed until I retired the department in 95, whatever it was. But it's been great, and also the Byron Fire Protection District grew when they brought Discovery Bay in. That Discovery Bay station was added in about the early part of the 70s, and grew to be a separate group of Byron Fire. So Byron Fire was always the two stations, Discovery Bay and Byron. And both stations, we was recruited with about 20 volunteers at each station. So it served the community well until we merged with Brentwood Fire.
I was thinking, actually, you know what? I'm still going to throw him under the bus because I thought he was leaving. But Captain Copple, if you don't mind, just starting to make your way up here a little bit. I am going to throw you under the bus a little bit. I was able to build my foundation out here. This is where I grew my roots with the Bethel Island Fire Protection District, being part of that part-time firefighter paramedic program. I wouldn't be where I am today without Chief David Wall taking a chance on me and Bethel Island Fire taking a chance on me, giving me the recommendation they did, and now I've been with Oakland Fire for roughly 19 years or so. Still have a good at least 9 to 10 years to go out there, but I really do truly look back and know that I don't think I'd be there today without them giving me the opportunity. It's hard to say whether I'd still be working on an ambulance or where I'd be at, but I definitely owe Bethel Island Fire and this foundation that I built out here. I did think that engine 53 was going to cut out of here, and I jotted down a couple of quick notes, and like I said, I was going to throw Captain Copple under the bus. I did start out my volunteer paid on call and firefighter paramedic position with Jeremy Copple. He was one of the POCs out there when I was one of the part-time medics. I also did have the opportunity to, because I lived close, Chief Wall ended up giving me a Plectron that I could have going off at my house and being able to join the folks a little bit later in the game. But I did have the opportunity to come up with them. Captain Copple, who was a firefighter at the time, may not remember, but I actually went on my first fire with him when it was a mobile home fire. And pretty late night, I just remember it was dark. I don't remember if it was, I actually think it was in the middle of the night. I'm pretty sure I jumped out of my bed and almost fell on the floor trying to put on my turnout boots, not even knowing what was going on, and that plectron just being so loud, scaring the heck out of me. But I remember being on scene with Jeremy, and Jeremy grabbing the nozzle and going in, and a lot of really good memories out there.
Hello everyone, Jeremy Copple, Captain East Contra Costa Fire. First of all, I'd like to thank Chief Dave Wall for giving me the opportunity to pursue this firefighting journey. I'd also like to thank Ted Lesna. I still have the diamond-plated necklace that you made for me 20-something years ago. Still have that, thank you. I also, too, share a story with you. I can remember my first fire as a POC. I had just gotten my turnouts, my helmet, my gloves. Never put on an SCBA or had any firefighting experience. I show up. Ted Lesna says, here, put this pack on, put this mask on your face, plugs it in, it says, can you breathe? It says, here's the nozzle, now go put the wet stuff on the red stuff. And so that's what began my passion in firefighting. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We had an incident in Discovery Bay and decided that we needed some volunteers out there. So we went to Byron and found out if we were going to be volunteers, we needed to get some training, first aid, CPR. So a group of us went out and got the training we needed, and 5 of us were ultimately taken into the Byron Fire District as volunteers. We built a little shack out in Discovery Bay on an easement. It was 4 foot by 8 foot, and had our turnouts in there and a couple rolls of hose and some first aid gear. And one night about 3 a.m. we had a fire. Byron responded with an engine. It was a kiln in a garage that caught the garage on fire, and ultimately the house burned to the ground. But Byron got there in 10 minutes at 3 a.m. in the morning. Now I can't drive from Byron to Discovery Bay in 10 minutes in traffic today. It was a hell of a response. But what we knew was 10 minutes wasn't going to save lives. It wasn't going to save a house. We needed a station in Discovery Bay. So group of us fought and got one, and talked another group of people out there, the property owners at the time, into buying a 1957 Class A 750 GPM pumper to put in it. We're given extra equipment by Chief in Brentwood, and some equipment from Knightsen and a little bit from Byron to staff it and equip it, and the rest is kind of history.
Well, thank you. We are at the finish line, and I will tell you what, I do thank God for the beautiful weather today. It was a little windy yesterday when we did our walkthrough, and the amount of people that showed up, I think that we're really privileged, again, to have you all here. As we do go to close this ceremony here, I do want to pause and I do want to recognize someone. I know that we've stated it, but I think I need to really drill this home, and I want to take a moment to do this. Captain Robert Ruddick, can you come up, please? Now, give him a round of applause. I don't think it should be taken lightly, but again, everything you see behind the room, a lot what is coming into reality here today is largely due to you. I said a lot of what I'm going to say to you in private, but I just think that it's right for everyone to hear. First of all, what I normally say to you is, strong work. Good job, brother, and I appreciate it. And but again, I also want to share what I'm about to say with his bride, Jeanette, because again, the teamwork that they put together to make this all happen it was a heavy lift. The thing I want to say to you very clearly is that, and I've told you this, but the work that you've done, the work that is behind us, everything that is here, it is something that is going to be memorialized, and it's going to be something that we're doing that is going to outlive us. And the time and the energy and the effort that you put into it, it was an investment worth doing. And if you hadn't done what you do, if we're not doing what we're doing, there's a high probability a lot of us have been forgotten. And so for that reason, I know it was endless hours. I know you spent a lot of time away from home. They're sitting down and making new friends. I didn't know you were making new friends. That's good. But again, I have a combination for you that just thanks you for your continued support of the Historical Preservation Project. And we definitely couldn't do it without you. So thank you. I also want to thank all of the past members and the families that are here. I also want you all to know this very sincerely, that as the fire chief of the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District, is that we do consider all of you part of our family. The district's preservation and historic preservation committee is working, and we plan to work on getting a permanent location not only for this monument, but we also look to expand all of the rosters to add to it. This is all just the beginning where we're here today. We don't want to finalize that until we are sure that all of the rosters are accurate. We want to make sure that they're accurate, we want to make sure they're relevant, and we want to make sure they're accessible to all of you. So please look at them and let us know how we need to correct it, if there's any corrections that need to be made. As the fire chief for the fire district, I have a goal to start all of our academies with an understanding of the district's history. As our district continues to grow, we will also continue to build our history into our culture. We have a recruit class that will be starting in July of this year. And our history, our agency maps, and the rosters that you find here today will be shared with all of them. Today, East Contra Costa Fire Protection District covers 250 square miles, and we answer 8,000 calls out of 3 firehouses covering the communities that you once served. And today, we're here to honor you. And I want to let you know that we today are the generation that is currently answering the call, but it's important to know that we are carrying your flag. And what's also important to know about this, there's going to be a time of which our time will be done. And we will become also the retired and or the past firefighters within these communities. I want you to know that we carry our flag with a lot of pride, and we are very proud to carry it. But when that day comes and the next generation takes ownership and responsibility for what it is that we are doing today, and we pass that flag to them, they will know very clearly that there are many honorable men and women that dedicated for not only decades to be able to provide a very high level of service. And it'll be only then that they will be able to take ownership and responsibility to know that what they're carrying needs to be represented well. So I thank all of you for setting the tone. I feel honored and privileged to be able to continue to honor and recognize and represent what it is that you started. And we will continue to see it through and make sure the generations that come beyond us know who you are individually and collectively. This is just a start. We will grow this organization and continue to honor you that come before us. I sincerely thank all of you for being here because I know time is difficult. I ask God to bless all of you individually for your dedication and service, and I thank the families for supporting the members. And I really hope to see all of you again next year. Thank you.